Well, along that time, I started reading. I came across a Tony Robbins book, and I had never, read any, personal development types of books or anything like that. So around that same time, I started reading, Rich Dad Poor Dad, other real estate investing books. I started reading personal development books, and so this was going into the end of 2006, getting ready to be this is like late December that year. And how I got to my first deal was I spent some time in goal setting, which I'd never really done before, and I made, in terms of business. And I told my wife, I said, babe, I'm gonna make it a goal to buy 10 rental properties this year. And granted, you know, keep in mind we were living in an apartment. We had no money. We had just gotten to a point where we had finished paying. We paid off our student loans. We had some bad credit card debt, things like that. And my wife was a hairstylist, and I had this corporate America job. I wasn't making a lot of money, and that's where we're at. We just did this Dave Ramsey thing. Oh, we're debt free. We paid off our bills, but we had no money, and we had good credit. That's about it. So so yeah. So she asked a very good question. She was like, "Okay, how do you plan on doing that?" And I didn't know. I was like, I don't. I was like, that's a fair question. I don't know, but I told her, and I meant it, and I was like, I'm gonna figure it out because I was reading these books about all this creative real estate financing, all this kind of stuff. I started attending networking events, like real estate networking events. So what I did to kind of back up the proclamation was I went to the Walgreens or CVS, whatever it was. I got a cheap little, poster board, a little white poster board for like 89 cents, whatever it was. And I drew 10 squares, put on the poster board, popped it up on the apartment wall, and told my wife, I said, every time I buy a property, I'm going to kind of fill it in. And I'm going to write, the property number and some other goals I was tracking in terms of like equity and cash flow. So I popped that on the wall that same weekend. This is the first weekend of January 2007. I went to a networking event. I met a wholesaler, and man, dude, like hit it off with that dude. I ended up buying like 50 houses from him over the years. But long story short, I got that first deal. He said, "Hey, I've got some deals. Let's take a look." So we went and met the following week. I looked at 4 or 5 deals, picked the one I liked best. He was like, "I've got a hard money lender. We can get you financing." I'm like, "I don't have any money." He's like, "Well, let's see what we can do." Kicked it to the hard money lender. He's like, I can do the deal. But you got to, it was like 7 grand I had to bring to closing, all this kind of stuff. So I didn't have money, but I had one of those credit card checks, and yeah. So which turned out was pretty good. It was like 0% interest. So threw that in my bank account, got the deal done. And to be honest with you, that first real estate deal I ever did was actually one of my easiest deals. Um, it was a rental property. I got super clear on the rehab. I hired like a highly recommended general contractor who did everything. He was on point. I had that property rehabbed and leased before my first hard money payment was due. Tenant stayed there for like 7, 8 years. Always paid her rent. So that was how I launched this thing, and was able to keep it rolling and buy. I met my goal and bought those 10 properties that same year using a lot of just freaking hard work, hustle, negotiating, doing 100%. Get basically I was able to uh, leverage my success in that first deal. I had good credit, so I was able to refinance quickly. And what I ended up doing, that was a $15,000 credit line I had on that account. And I told my hard money lender, I was like, "Hey man, I want to keep buying houses, but full transparency, you already know, you see my financials. I don't have any money. Um, and so what I negotiated with him was I borrowed like $7,000 more off that card, and I gave him like a cashier's check or something like that to his hard money company, and I was like, just keep it in your drawer. And he kept it there. I was like, if I ever don't perform getting refinance out of your loans, then you keep it. So I was able to navigate through that, and he basically kind of gave me a line of credit, so to speak. So he gave me 100% financing on my deals. I had to, work for the draws and I was able to get all 10 of them refinanced. And so that was that. And then after 10, the Fannie Mae requirements back then where you could only get 10. So then I had a whole new problem of how do I keep going from there? And that kind of was a good problem because it led me into putting together partnerships and raising private money and things like that.